The agenda lives at the Tribunal tonight. It is a giant night at the Tribunal for two individuals, a team, and the whole shape of this Anzac round. Jesse Hogan has learnt his fate. We'll have that for you in a moment. The headline act is Toby Greene, who is the source of, you'll be shocked to know, spirited debate as he heads to the league judiciary.
It's hard being Toby. It's hard being Toby.
Great courage from Boyd. He's brought it from Greene. That was brilliant.
He won't be anything in that. He's allowed to contest the ball, isn't he? He's allowed to launch the ball.
Take your hat off to Jordan Boyd. He knew what was coming. He knew he had to go, and he did it.
I think under the letter of the law at the moment, he's probably in trouble.
It's such a delicate balance. You want your players to attack the footy hard, and then there's consequences, isn't there?
I don't think at the end of the day he was trying to take this mark. He just covered up.
Toby jumped and tried to contest and then tried to protect, which is very, very hard to do anything but in mid-air. So, you know, I think if it's me personally, I'm probably letting him off.
I feel like it's been so difficult to compete. The way the rules are written and the trouble you can get into, it's made it so difficult for players approaching contest.
We obviously had Brad Maynard last year. Split-second decisions to protect, and then, you know, there's consequences. I'm all for the changes in the game to protect heads. I'm all for it.
I think the whole way we view the game, and I'm not saying Braden Maynard is the reason, but since that incident, players have to accept responsibility as soon as they leave the ground.
I feel for Peter Wright and Toby Greene in those situations because, yeah, you do protect yourself in situations, but we've just had another player retire this week.
Doesn't matter whether he got up or not. I'm just purely looking at the incident itself because it's hard for Toby Greene, it's hard for other players when they go to leave the ground.
This is always going to be great in our game, and we've got to live with it.
Is our game turning into Gaelic football?
It's the next significant test case. The Giants have tested the waters, I think, with a degree of success. David Zeta is on duty tonight. David, welcome.
Hello, Jared. Hello, Robbo again.
Has Jesse Hogan beaten the rap?
They're 1 for 1, Jared. So far, Jesse Hogan is free to play against the Brisbane Lions. This charge now, this was a fascinating case to watch unfold. Now, the Giants came in arguing evidence does not establish Hogan made anything other than a negligible manner of contact with Lewis Young's face, and also that this was not an intentional strike above the shoulders. Jesse Hogan gave evidence. He said he wasn't even aware he'd hit Lewis Young in the face after this incident before Lewis Young said to him, "You'll get a week for that, mate." Jesse Hogan said, "What for?" He said, "You've just hit me in the face." Jesse Hogan wasn't aware of that in his own evidence. So he has given pretty candid evidence there. Now, this all centred on some conflicting, what the Giants argue are conflicting guidelines in the Tribunal guidelines. So one section of the guidelines says that the match review officer can upgrade impact from negligible to low based on the potential to cause injury. Another section of it, when regarding striking, says that a strike requires more than negligible impact to be a reportable offence. So Jeff Gleeson and the Tribunal members left to deliberate. They then came back. Jeff Gleeson thought it was very appropriate to give instructions on this matter because we saw what happened in recent times with Patrick Cripps when he didn't give accurate or detailed enough instructions. He said the offence of striking requires more than negligible impact. The potential to cause injury cannot result in negligible impact being upgraded to a higher level. So because of that, Jesse Hogan was cleared by the Tribunal. The Tribunal said, in light of the ruling delivered in this matter, in order for the charge of striking to be upheld, it's necessary there is a finding of more than negligible impact. We find there was not. So another really interesting precedent-setting case at the Tribunal. Jesse Hogan gets off, and at the moment, they're just lining up now, coming online to hear Toby Greene's case.
So he didn't get fined at all, David?
Well, this case has been thrown out, as far as I'm aware. The reasons have just come in, but it has been thrown out because it can't be a reportable offence if it is not graded. So it's negligible, therefore it cannot be made a reportable offence. That's what the Tribunal has said in relation to striking. The guidelines are a bit different in other areas of these in terms of bumps and those sorts of things, but in terms of striking, the precedent's been set tonight on that front.
I can't comprehend that. I really can't. If he's not going to get suspended, he should get a fine. When can you throw a jab at a player, connect with him, and they say, "Oh no, you didn't hit him too hard"? Come on, AFL. Come on, Tribunal. I think the Tribunal this year, Jared, has really let footy down, and I don't say that flippantly. I said that last week. I'm staggered by that decision. Now, try and convince me otherwise, but if you're going to throw it that force, and it's what, just clipped him? Oh, no, you're all right, you just clipped him. Well, fine him for the action. Brad Scott was speaking about the action yesterday. We can't have players doing that behind the play, 100 metres behind the play, mate.
Yeah, so
it doesn't sit comfortably with me.
A threshold for a level of impact to actually make it a strike. But if you throw a punch and it lands in any way, there should be a consequence to that.
Well, OK, so the threshold was...
it has to reach low.
Right, it's got to reach low. But don't take into consideration it was behind play, which is deliberate. I mean, come on. I think that's a really poor decision. But anyway, good luck to him.
So at the very least, you think it should be a fine?
Oh, you can't... you can't escape any penalty for doing that. You just can't. I'm happy if he doesn't want to get a week, if they don't want to give him a week, downgrade it, but don't throw it out. That's wrong. That's wrong. Anyway.
OK, so the Giants are off to a winning start. David, the whole football world, players, coaches, observers, fans alike are pretty deeply engaged in how this goes tonight. Do you have an inkling of what's about to begin?
Well, I can go one better, Jared, because I've just had a quick listen in to the tribunal. It's just started in the very early seconds, but the Giants have said, in their argument, this is not conduct that is unreasonable in the circumstances. It is reasonable for him to contest the ball in the way that he did. So that's the early marker the Giants have set in the ground there. It remains to be seen whether Toby Greene gives evidence. I think that's probably a sure thing, given that Toby will want to have his say there. So that's where it sits at the moment with this one. I think the Giants are arguing you're allowed to go for a mark. You can't legislate aerial contests out of the game. He was leading out to mark and contest the ball. He's entitled to do that. His opponent won a free kick, played out the match unencumbered, uninhibited, and I think the Giants are arguing down that case. So they're saying this is a completely reasonable footy act. They're not trying to downgrade impact. This is straight, plain and simple. This is an act that is allowed in footy. That's what the Giants are arguing, and that is the case that is currently beginning as we speak. So a straight not guilty plea is now understanding that you're talking to us while this is going on. Is there a second lever that they're able to go to at some stage during the case, or do they have to tip their hand right at the start that they would also argue medium down to low? Well, if they have, I've just missed it because I put the headphones down, but I assume that could be a secondary argument for them to say the potential for injury was realised in this case. This was as bad as it could have been given the circumstances. It should be low impact, not medium. But clearly, their absolute priority case here is that this is not a reportable offence. Toby Greene is allowed to go for the ball. It is reasonable in the way that he did it. It is not unreasonable in the circumstances to contest in the way that he did. That's the argument that they're making, and the one that's going to play out, I assume, over the next hour or so. All right, we'll touch base with you repeatedly. Thanks, David. Thanks, guys. So that's the case stand. It was a reasonable way to contest the ball.
I probably sat in the fence a little bit last night, but I've become more definitive in my view today. It was unreasonable to contest the ball like that. It was reasonable for Toby Greene to run at the contest. It was pretty much OK to jump. But as soon as he tucked his arm and hit him in the head, that's unreasonable. And I wrestled with this, and I've come... We've got to protect the players, we've got to change behaviours. If you run and jump like that and hit someone in the head, even though you might say you didn't mean it, you've got to be held accountable. And I disagree with Jonathan Brown about Gaelic football. I know the game's changing, but it's as demanding, as tough as it's ever been. Are we taking out reckless acts? Yeah, I think we do, mate. It's just a sport. We're not here to kill people and injure people. It's just a sport. But Toby... If the tribunal lets Toby off of this charge, the whole football will be, I think, a little bit befuddled about what's going on. Now, not everyone might not agree with me there, but if Peter Wright gets 4 weeks and a concussion and Toby Greene gets off because there was no concussion, that doesn't sit comfortably with me. He wouldn't get off because there was no concussion. So if he was to beat it, the most significant part would be the rationale why, to help us understand where that fits into the scheme of things. And equally, if he is found guilty, I want to understand what the game is asking Toby what the game's asking him not to do. Not so jump presume like it's that. Turning the shoulder right at the end. But so everything's OK until he does. So I'm really interested. He could have spoiled. He could have spoiled. Like people say, what could he have done in the circumstance? He could have ran in, looked at it and spoiled. Until he just put the fist out and spoiled and made body contact. Don't have to go in like that and kill yourself. make a spoil, but to jump, tuck, I think that's unacceptable in football.
All right, we'll keep tabs there.